What's going on, guys? Another big episode of the Almost Made It podcast. This week we had on an absolute legend, Santo Cilauro.
We spoke about his unofficial translating skills for Juventus when they came here, his how Santo Semeneds were born, and also staying in a brothel with his old man at the 2002 World Cup.
Let's jump straight in. Welcome back to episode 9 of season 2 of the Almost Made It podcast, proudly brought to you by Cultural Club. Before we get into it, a quick little shout out to my good friend and ex-assistant coach, Nick Effie, for actually making this happen. But with us, we are in the presence of greatness, to be honest. I started writing this introduction last night and I thought, do I actually have to? Like, if you don't know this man, what are you doing? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Santo Cilauro, or you might know him as Santo Cilauro. How are you?
I'm good. Or you might know me as what my dad calls me, Santino. Santino.
Very good. It's an absolute honour to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me,
Thank you for
guys.
coming on.
Thank you for coming on.
It's great to be in a podcast called Almost Made It when I never made it in your field. So I'm one notch below it. Trust me, I'm talking about the football field.
Yes, which we'll get into. Let's start from your beginning, pretty much. What was your childhood like growing up in Australia?
My childhood was, I grew up in a sort of a typical Italian migrant family in Collingwood in Melbourne, which is basically just around the corner from where we're recording this. Extremely happy childhood. I can't tell you how wonderful it was. Everything about it was great. Don't have any bad memories at all. I lived in an area that was had so many ethnic communities in there that people asked me, later on, they said, "Oh, did you see much racism when you were growing up?" I said, yeah, we gave the Australians a really hard time, And they go, no. I mean, no one did anything to us. We were the majority. So, and also, but what was it like growing up in a working class family in a working class suburb? No, I didn't work. My dad was a solicitor. He wasn't a working class. Well, I mean, he worked very hard, but it was a typical migrant setup, except for the fact that my dad was a solicitor. But in many ways, he was a solicitor for the community, for his own paesani. And so I used to wake up in the morning to go to school. My grandfather used to take me to school every morning as a little kid, and there would be people lining up at our house to go see my dad because they couldn't take time off work. Oh. So it was very much still a community thing. And even when my dad ended up having a solicitor's office in Brunswick, which he only finished working at 3 or 4 years ago, he was still practicing up until he was 90. It was like being at a marketplace, It was really, and as a kid I used to work at the office. So I loved working at the office, and my dad would always say things to me like, "Okay, you're looking after the office on Saturday. I won't be in, right? But accept no fruit. Okay, if someone doesn't have any money, don't take any fruit." And I was such an easy target because I'll never forget. Oh, you got no idea. Dominic came from the market. He gave us a sack of cherries, a whole sack of cherries. A bit like sort of Jack and the Beanstalk story, but a really happy childhood. My dad would have been a lot happier had I been better at playing soccer.
That's what we're about to ask, actually. So how did playing soccer come about?
My dad was involved at Juventus in the 1950s and 60s in that golden era where I'm sure you guys have heard that Olympic Park used to be full of, when Juventus played South Melbourne Hellas, there would be 30,000 people, 40,000 people at Olympic Park. I remember it very clearly as a kid. So my dad was involved at Juventus, and then he took up a position at the Victorian Soccer Federation, which he kept forever. In fact, he still gets the lifetime pass, every year to go to see the state league games. He was on the board of appeals up until a short time ago. So he was always involved in soccer. I used to go to the games. His dream was that I could play well. I was such a shocking player. My enthusiasm for the game is in inverse proportion to how good I am at the game.
What positions you?
Oh, mate, they tried me everywhere. I just did. My dad used to look at me and goes, "Hey, you know what? Here's a thing. Here's a tip, Santo. Do not practice your cricket bowling action on the soccer field. It just does not look good. The coach doesn't like that. So I was really overweight as a kid. Not really overweight, but overweight. So I wasn't the athletic type. So they tried me in defence. They'd hide me wherever they could. Really. I used to play goalkeeper every now and again. You know what? I played at a pretty good level once I started getting into shape. So at Melbourne University, where I did my law and arts degree, I played for Melbourne Uni, it was in provisional league, which I don't even know whether it still exists these days. But I played at a good level. Again, I played. When they heard that I used to be a goalkeeper, they threw me in goals, and I think we lost 13-0 one game, and they moved me back out into the field.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
So it's safe to say, no matter what, I was never the great player. I played indoor up until a few years ago. I just love the game.
Of course.
So you mentioned cricket. Were you good at any other sports? Were you good at cricket? Did you any
I
other
was okay in
sports?
footy. I was okay in footy.
Yeah.
I used
Were
to
you
play
better
footy.
at footy than soccer? Or?
I think I may have been captain of the soccer team at high school, at my secondary school. So I got to was I captain? I think I was. Jesus, God, my memory's gone there. As I said, when I slimmed down, I was okay. And when I played footy, I was okay. I was okay.
So
I could just
you knew
manage.
sort of that it wasn't a path that you wanted to take professionally.
No,
at that,
no,
I know what you mean.
absolutely.
And then you
not.
had other obviously passions and stuff that you took.
My dad would have taken me aside, going, "Mate, don't put yourself through this."
Yeah, because sometimes people they get to that age and it hits them, and they're like, "Actually, no, I can do this." But you knew straight away.
Straight away.
Yeah.
And in fact, I learned that. Both my boys who are now in their early to mid 20s, they've gone through the NPL system. At Port Melbourne and South Melbourne, various places, and I'm always very wary of those parents that sit around going, my boy's they're looking at him, he might be going to Spain and all that kind of stuff. And oh my God, I've seen that over and over again, over the years. So, there's lots of false hope out there. Mind you, I mean, you got to follow that stuff as well. Otherwise, we're never going to progress as a nation. You've got to do that. But I've got to say, over the years, I've been watching a lot of junior football, and I can count the names of really good players, maybe on the fingers of one hand of all that time. So, I don't know what that means. Whether as a young generation we're too complacent and we don't. If I don't make it, I don't make it. I'll go and study. I'll go do something else. Or whether it's the coaching isn't quite right, or whether the connections from here to then overseas aren't quite right.
I think it's a combination of
I think it
everything
might
you've
be.
said, to be honest.
Because I saw as a little kid, Denis Genroy, is that his surname? The French boy.
For Melbourne City.
So he went to Melbourne City because John Van Skip was there, loved him. And in fact, I think he may have then gone back to Holland with John.
He's in France at the moment.
He's in France at the moment.
From the last
because
time
he's French.
I saw,
He's a
the
French
last
boy.
time I saw,
He's about the best I saw as a little kid.
Yeah.
And I think he got his chances to go overseas through John Van Skip, through literally going, John saying, I believe in this kid, come over with me. So it's those connections that help,
gives you the opportunity at least.
Yeah, Jason Davidson, people like that, they got their chances that way. Mark Viduka is a classic one where if it weren't for those connections at Melbourne Knights, with those close connections with Croatia, he would never have got to Europe at the age of whatever he was. Was he 17 or 18? I
think
can't
he
remember.
was 17. I remember reading super young.
Yeah.
But I think you're spot on. Like it's all. There's a lot of it. I think revolves around culture as well, just as we are as a footballing nation. Like you mentioned, like if you don't make it, it's all right, I'll just go and study.
Yeah,
which is very real, and in a way, we're pretty lucky.
Yes,
for that.
Yeah.
But you go across the world, and for them, if they don't make it, there's nothing else.
Yeah,
so there's that mentality.
In Brazil, I mean, you've
exactly. It's sort of as well how serious we take the game. I think as well compared to overseas. Like we've had our own experiences, and it's like they look at that as their bread and butter. That's what brings food on the table. Whereas here, a lot of the times it's like it's sort of a fun game, but it means a lot more. It actually and it counts for a lot more than what we sort of think it is. So it's much more friendly here.
Yeah, it's very
and
much.
I think it's to our detriment when then kids go overseas. Yeah. And then they cop it like that, and it's like a rude awakening.
Well,
and they're like, Jesus, this guy doesn't speak to me. This guy, but it's like you got to hold your own.
That was the great strength of Mark Bresciano. Mark, who I love dearly, and I put him up there as one of our great products. Up there with Dukes and Vinny and and Harry Kuehl and obviously all the other greats. But Bresch really went there and shut up, zipped his mouth, learned his trade. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He just did it with respect, didn't expect anything else. And I hope Vinny Grella doesn't sort of get upset at me that I relate a story that he once told. But as a player agent, he says that sometimes you get young people, it's basically like, yeah, so what can you do for me, mate? And you go, hey, mate.
Yeah.
Well, just relax.
Yeah.
That sense of entitlement is like, just temper that, guys, because you know who you're talking to. And he was saying, sometimes they compare themselves to players, and you go, you're too young to start doing that. You've actually got to have a bit of humility and confidence, of course. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you do have to sit back a bit and go, okay, I've got to be patient here. I might go somewhere. I don't like what this guy's saying, but just zip it for now, because he's been there, he's done that. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But Bresch has shown that patience, I reckon, that has then paid off in spades later. I mean, he had a great long, probably over-delivered, I reckon, for 2 or 3 years after his prime, still kept on giving stuff that you go, oh my God, would we have got to the World Cup in 2006 without Bresch in the lead up? I don't know. It's
probably not.
I think that's the key about what you say is those type of players, you see them go overseas, but they had a long career.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of young players now, they go overseas and then next year they're back in the A-League.
Yeah.
Whereas those type of players, they had a whole career in Europe.
Oh, they don't exist
They didn't even come back to playing in
That's
the
right.
A-League. They just finished off at the highest level and that was it.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely something in that. And I think that's also the world we live in, that entitlement. It's like, mate, you got to earn that. You don't just rock up and I'm going to be.
If you ever talk to guys like Ned Zelic or Frank Farina and those people, they literally went there when they were 17 or 18 on their own.
Yeah.
They're literally on their own going, I just got a phone call from the coach. The coach is doing me, is saying I've got to do this, so I'll do that, and I don't know what's going to happen. And
Exactly.
Yeah,
we've been there.
The Craig Johnson story is pretty amazing too. I mean, really. I mean, some of the stories that he tells, when he went over there, just remarkable. They really are. And I can't even imagine, having had 2 boys, right, who are pretty, they got their heads screwed on, all that, they know what they're doing. They wouldn't have been able to handle that. They would have been sooking on the phone with me every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Different generation, I reckon. I don't know. There's just like so obviously Alan Davison.
Yes.
He was our coach for many, many years. He was a big reason why we went overseas.
That's one of the reasons why we were able to stay overseas.
Even the stories he tells about Jason being in Japan.
I know, I've heard those stories.
Like
unbelievable stories.
Incredible.
The discipline that he had to go through in the early days and how tough it was. Because I think Jason was only about 14 when he went.
He was 14.
And I don't think he spoke Japanese at all at the time.
No. He's probably told
even though he could get the passport because of
Japanese,
the
The story about him being late to training and they shaved everyone's head.
Yes,
and all that.
no, I heard that story. He was late to training, so they shaved everybody's heads.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Because they were very military style,
Yeah.
which we know that that's the way Japan is. But even though when he's like, he rang his dad after 6 months and he's like, Dad, like he was all excited. He goes, my teammates invited me out for the first time after 6 months. He had no one. And he was playing with them and he'd score goals. They wouldn't even go up to him, nothing. And it's like, imagine, with all respect, but most kids these days, they would crumble after that. But this guy, like at 14, is still gone.
Who was he? Craig Johnson, when he went to Middlesbrough, I think, at the age of 16, I think one of the Charltons, Eddie Charlton or Bobby Charlton, I can't remember which of the Charltons was the coach. After about a week, Craig was calling up his parents every week because they'd mortgaged the house so he could travel there on his own, right? In fact, they just sold the house a couple of years ago, the house that they mortgaged in Newcastle. And so one day, Charlton's pointing to everyone. He's a tough bastard. He's pointing to everyone. He's going, mate, you're too slow. Mate, you're too fat. He's doing all this kind of stuff. He gets to Craig Johnson and he said, and you are by far the worst player I have ever seen in my whole life. Right?
Jesus.
He said that to Craig, who's like 17 years old. And he's calling his parents every day about how well it's going. So he's called his mum. So his mum called up and he goes, how's it going today? He's going, oh, good, yeah. The gaffer spoke to us and you know what he said to me, Mum? And she said, what? He said to me, you are the best player I've ever seen in my whole life. And when he got kicked out he got dropped from the team, he didn't leave the club. He lived in where the groundsman lived. The groundsman let him live in the shed, right? And he literally set up a wall at the car park with circles and stuff in it where he'd kick the ball. He invented his own routine kind of thing to keep his skills up, and got the groundsman to tell him whenever the coach was about to drive up so that he could hide. And he's trying to do it, strangely enough, he's trying to develop that as an actual program.
Oh,
the actual,
really?
yeah. So he's always full of ideas. I mean, he's had a million ideas.
It's incredible though, because that wouldn't happen these days to start with. But then how we were saying that sense of entitlement of younger players, these guys who made it, I found anyway, even today, like we saw Bresh a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we were playing paddle.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he was there.
And Bresh was part of the reason I got to go overseas.
Right.
He helped me get to Palermo. But seeing him, I hadn't seen him for probably, well over 10 years.
Right.
And he sat down with us. We had a chat.
With all his mates that were there. We were just like casual
And this
people.
guy is someone in every right, can be as arrogant as he likes, really.
Absolutely.
For the things he has achieved.
Top of the tree. Yeah.
Exactly.
He's my favourite.
Yeah.
You know that he's my favourite.
Because of Bresh's diary.
Yeah.
But
what a gentleman he is too. And gentle, quiet.
And we see it with people that maybe they've played a handful of games and they're walking around like they're Cristiano Ronaldo.
Exactly.
And it's like you got players like him, and then you sort of wonder why he made it, and it's like, well, I think that's got to do with it as well, because he's a good human being.
Yes,
you know what I mean? And that's why he has longevity in the game.
Yeah.
And you see now, I think he's at Catania now. He's doing work with them.
I think he might be working
or he's moved away with them. I don't know, but he's still always still in the loop because he's obviously good at what he does. So it's credit to him.
You mentioned Melbourne Uni very briefly.
Yes.
My mother, when I told her that I was very lucky to get you on the show, the first thing she mentioned was the Melbourne Uni reviews.
Oh, right. So she was at Melbourne Uni in the 80s, was she?
Well, she used to, come and see you.
Right, okay. Yeah, no, we did reviews back then, yeah.
Yeah, what was that about? She sort of tried to explain it to you.
They still do. There are still faculty reviews. They're comedy shows.
Okay.
They're comedy shows. So Melbourne University has a very long tradition of law reviews, I think architecture reviews. I think the medical people maybe have one night where they just have a one night of an entertainment kind of thing. And it's basically, you don't have to be in the faculty. I mean, we had lots of people that weren't studying law that were doing it. But in this tradition, you basically get together. It's an ensemble. You write, you do your sketches, you do your shows. And so we were doing this in the early 80s, and that's where I met my working dog colleagues back then. That's well over 40 years ago now. And the only reason I remember I got, because I'm a terrible actor. I'm the worst actor in the world. And in fact, pretty bad comedian. I can't even tell a joke. In fact, my friends get me to tell jokes because they know how much I mangle them. I can write jokes, and I can write for others, and I can sort of improvise and stuff. But I'm far from being a funny person. But I used to make films, and I used to make it on a Super 8 camera. That's how far back. It's probably further back than when your mum even came and saw us. But and I remember I said to the law review people, I can make funny films. Are you interested? And they said, oh yeah. How much is it going to cost? What's your film ratio? How much film do you need to make? For a 3-minute film, how much film do we need to buy? And I got the job because I said I need 3 minutes of film, because I just didn't edit. I just basically what we shoot is what we get, and I stop rolling, and then we do all the editing that way. And now there are film festivals like that. There are actual film festivals around the world where you make films without editing. So I like to say that I pioneered that. And then slowly I got to meet the guys, all the guys that did. So year after year we kept on doing reviews. The only reason I did law arts is because I wanted to do the longest course that I could possibly think of to stay at uni for the longest amount of time. I wasn't serious about being a lawyer. And then we ended up doing, in 1984, there was something called the Melbourne University Review, where we combined the various reviews from the faculties, and that was the start of, there was a group called the D Generation, which was an early predecessor to it, The Late Show and all our working dog shows after that. So they were lots of fun, but geez, they were the amount of fails that we had there. The best times were when things went wrong. God. You know what I mean? So they were funny, and your mum probably remembers some funny sketches and things that we did. But my God, there were some deaths. What
was like the worst one?
There was one where it was so bad. It was me dressed up as an ant, and I was getting upset at people for being so big and wanting to step on me and do sort of stuff to me. So I was it was called Angry Ant, and there were two disasters about Angry Ant, and one of them was we did a show in Canberra once where it was a different setup. The lighting wasn't from directly above us. It was a floodlight. So it was from a distance directly into my eyes. So when you have one of those lights on you, you can't see anything around you. And it was a sort of a cabaret kind of thing. So people were eating around us. And as an angry ant, I couldn't even get angry because I didn't know where I was. I couldn't walk anywhere because I was scared that I'd fall off the stage. And halfway through it, I remember thinking to myself, oh, this is stupid. This is just all psychological. I rehearsed this without the lights. There's a stage around me. I should just walk. My first step, I ended up straight on a table. I smashed all these. I landed on a table. So it was a complete disaster. And then there was another time when we were about to stop doing Angry Ant, not only because I'd hurt myself, but because it just wasn't funny. And I'll never forget Marg Downey, who's now in Kath and Kim. She always works with Magda Jabansky and all the others. And one night, Angry Ant got a laugh. It was people were laughing at it. And I walked off and I go, there you go, Marg, because she was always very skeptical. I go, see, Angry Ant got a laugh. And she goes, you don't know what happened. I go, what do you mean what happened? It got a laugh. She goes, your dick is hanging out. So we were in this, I was in this suit dressed as an ant and I hadn't tucked myself in properly. And there's me thinking that it was getting laughs. So to me, Alessandro, I think that constitutes probably my biggest disaster.
That's a good one.
That's hard to beat that one. So would you say throughout your career doing those sort of reviews, that part of your career, was that what kickstarted everything else?
Oh, totally. Yes, it was because, we learned to fend for ourselves. We were making a living out of it. We were traveling around Australia and, playing joints and living in bad places, but making money. And, we had to learn the business of, making sure that we could sustain ourselves. Otherwise, we just couldn't travel. I'd say that what really built up who Working Dog is now and the way we write now is when we went on radio. We did breakfast show at Triple M for about 8 years, and that really honed our skills. That was hard going. That was 3 hours every morning. We weren't taking callbacks and hey, what's the worst date you've ever? We weren't doing any of that. We were just commenting on what was happening during the day and then inventing characters and sketches. I'm sure you can ask your mum about those ones if she remembers. And that really honed our skills. That radio, you got to be consistent. You just got to turn up every day and do. I guess it's like playing soccer, guys. You know what I mean? You've just got to do that work. You've got to do and then when it happens for you on the field, you go, yeah, that's because I did the work.
Do you think that there was a real moment during those years that you thought I can actually really make it in this industry? Was there just one moment, or was it like a accumulation of?
We had faith. Yeah. We had faith. In fact, every time we'd encounter any negativity, we fed on that, which is, I'm presuming happens in sport a lot. When you get a coach or a person or someone even in your own family, you're going, you know what, I don't think you're made for this. I mean, talk to Ange Postecoglou about this stuff. I mean, how many knocks do you get?
We've seen that. He used to give it to his law from when
do
he
you
was...
remember that interview
with Craig Foster?
Oh, yeah, that was amazing.
And everyone's like, he's an unbelievable, but he could have easily just crumbled there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you got to roll with that. You got to go with that, and you got to have faith. I mean, Ange is probably the man who's got the most faith in himself that I can possibly think of when you think about it. I mean, really. And, he was literally coaching. He was coaching his his school side when he was about 14 or 15. He literally told I don't know whether you've read his book. His book's amazing. His book's fantastic. He told the art teacher who was at Paran High was the soccer coach.
Yeah, of course it was.
So he just went up and they were playing in the previous year's football jumper, the AFL jumpers with the cut-off shirt. They were playing football in a cut-off shirt, and they ended up winning up the state titles.
So was that the beginning of his coaching career,
Pretty
let's
much
say?
Yeah. Also because, I mean, I don't know whether you know, but his dad he loves his dad, quite tough on him. Yeah. And his dad used to say stuff and like, yeah, you're a good player, but you're not that great.
He'd be honest with you. Yeah.
Even he's played for Australia, and his dad's still going, you're probably a better coach than you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to quote the wrong thing but sort of that in that world. But so there were clearly moments where you're going, I don't know whether this is going to work, and I do have a fallback. I can go back into the profession. I can do whatever, but you got to stick with it. And so every time someone at uni came up to us and you'd ask for a grant, going, we're going to try and travel Australia with this show. Have a look at it. Can we have a university grant so we can represent Melbourne University? And they go, no, it's sort of not quite edgy enough or something like that. You'd sit there. So rather than actually get knocked down by that, you'd be encouraged. You go, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove that people do like that stuff. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think that's held us in good stead. So in the past, when I've worked with Sam Pang and Ed Cavalier on Santo, Sam and Ed, we kind of know, no one at SBS is going to tell us, oh, hang on, you might offend your audience by doing that. You go, I don't want to offend my audience. I love my audience. So, if you think that an ethnic group will not like that, I disagree. I disagree. I think that if you do your comedy from a good that if people know that it's coming from a good place, they're going to go with it. They're not going to sit there and go, "Oh, that's offensive. I find that offensive. You shouldn't say that about Italians, that they're all like that." You go, "Well, come on.
It's just a
joke. It's just a joke. I mean, as in, jokes rely on generalizations. Exactly. You know what I mean? Right. So if you can't make a generalization, you can't have a joke almost. Do you know what I mean? So,
what is your opinion? Because I know these days this is a
it'd be very hard. Yeah,
getting cancelled is a thing. So we got given advice really, really early on by some by legendary comedians, and they're saying, and they always said, whatever you do, if you're worried about offending something, just make sure it's really funny. Because if it's not really funny, then you're getting in trouble there. So just if you make it really funny, then people go, "Oh, come on."
Yeah, he's joking,
So you know what I mean? It's not offensive towards dwarfs. It's just a funny story about a dwarf who got on a bus. Or whatever it is. Yeah. But it is hard. It is, and also the world has changed. So you actually do have to keep it in mind. So we were going to do Cup Fever again. The last time we did a World Cup show was in 2010 in South Africa. Yeah. And 2010 to 2000 when was Qatar? Did they do it in 22 or 23?
Last year, wasn't it?
Did they delay by a year or was it 20? Yeah,
22.
In those 12 years, the world has changed. So you're sitting there, you're going, well, you know what we would have, we would have done this ethnic stereotype. Maybe not. Yeah. Maybe not. No, because then it's also a matter of a critical mass. If you end up. If all of a sudden you go, hang on, it just seems to me that you're just having a go at a Spanish guy, you're having a go at a Qatari guy, you're having a go at a North Korean guy. It feels like it's top-heavy. So you're going, okay. So I think in comedy you do have to be careful, but you can't just sit back and be so careful that you say, no, I can't possibly say that, because then you'll end up saying nothing. In fact, it was funny that SBS did show the World Cup, but didn't have an entertainment show that went with it.
Yeah.
Because you're going, well, that's interesting. So you'd rather not even have entertainment because of the fear that it might offend.
Was that probably the reason where it was held?
I'm presuming it's one of the reasons. Yeah. We sort of never. I mean, in the end, we made the decision not to make the show, but only because we thought it may be a bit too hard.
Definitely.
That's sad.
With everything surrounding the tournament too, that was specific surrounding the tournament.
And also, I think there are sensibilities because it's in the Middle East and there's a particular religion, all that kind of stuff. But isn't it funny? Because I think I know our audience. I think I know Western Sydney pretty well. I think, and you're going,
Exactly.
you know what? I think most people would have really enjoyed it.
100%.
Anyway.
I think especially that tournament, taking away that, but it was very contradicting from certain sides. It's like they're happy to do this, but then they don't want to do that. It's like, well, then if you're not happy, you shouldn't have and host the tournament then.
You're right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. I think there were some double standards there. You're going, hey, come on. You can't say, I'm going to make a political statement here.
Yeah.
But if you really want to make a political statement,
abandon it. Exactly. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
But going on to Santo Cilauro, how did that come about? How was that all? Because we remember it in 2010.
Do you?
Honestly,
were you guys in Oz?
Yeah, just before we were.
I remember 06.
Yeah, the 06.
Oh, yes.
I was 11, but I used to look forward to that show like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
It was
06 was just so special.
The best.
It was unbelievable. But so 06 was such good fun, and 06 was my third World Cup. I love going to the World Cup. My dream was to take my dad to a World Cup, which we did in 2002. 98 was fantastic. After 2006, I did quite a lot of media from there. In fact, I did one of the only reason I went to 1998 was because Mick Malloy and Tony Martin were doing a show on Fox on the Fox network around Australia, and one day they were talking to me about the upcoming World Cup in '98, and I said, and I was talking about it, and in the end they said, why don't you go over there as our correspondent? And I said, well, geez, that'd be fun, but you realise it's only 2 weeks away. And they go, no, we'll talk to the general manager. If we can get some sponsorship, maybe, what would you consider going on? Yeah, that'd be all right. I got a phone call about half an hour later from the general manager, who's a mate of mine. He goes, hey, mate, lock in your dates. I've got a sponsor. You're going. Jeez. It was literally, it happened in about 45 minutes.
Wow.
And so I was doing phone calls back to them with, just comedy observations about what was going on, and that really sort of gave me a lot of confidence that I could do that kind of stuff. In fact, we were doing a show on Channel 10 at the time called The Panel, and so I was doing a bit of stuff for them as well on TV, which was good. And so I didn't do anything in 2002 because I went with my dad. 2006, I just wanted to see Australia play, but I still did a lot of media. So 2010. Ed Cavalier, who knows more about football than anybody I know in the world, he's unbelievable. He's a machine.
Big Interfan.
Yeah,
Oh man, he's so. I'm telling you, he's incredible. He truly is incredible. So he and I got together and thought, geez, this could be fun. I had known Sam because he was hosting a breakfast show on community radio here, 3RRR in Melbourne. And I took an instant liking to him. I liked his style. He wasn't a huge soccer fan, but major Liverpool. Like a lot of people, they're not soccer fans, but they love Liverpool. And he did. And just threw him into the deep end. He had done a show called ADBC, which was a history version of Spicks and Specks. So it didn't go very well. He keeps joking about how they keep repeating it just before the 4:30 a.m. Korean news on SBS. So the three of us just got together. We had a great time. I can't tell you. It was about 30 days in a row. We were on the time difference was perfect because the shows, they wanted something to happen there. I think the first game was at about either 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or something around then. So they needed an hour just to keep people interested. So it was perfect, or half an hour in there. But geez, it was hard work because we'd be watching games in the morning, and it was a bit of a skeleton crew. I mean, a great crew, but it wasn't. It was us watching game times 6. As in, you couldn't even watch it in real time because we didn't have enough time. And we'd be so exhausted by the middle of the day that we were recording it at Federation Square in Melbourne that we booked a hotel called the Medina on Flinders Street just so that we could sleep in the afternoon. And we never realised how sus that looked because there were 3 grown men would walk in, say hello to the receptionist, right, at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then 2 hours later emerge slightly dishevelled, and say see you later, and then come back every day at 1 o'clock and leave at 3 o'clock. And and geez, we had a good time too. Because sometimes the guests after the show, if they couldn't leave, like I think one of the Vidmars was on the show, so they would then come back and we would watch Australia games in the hotel and then sleep there at night, if we could. And so it was great fun. It was like camp. It was like camp. Yeah. And we'd have great guests coming in. When the team came back, Dukes came in and geez, Dukes was funny. Dukes was just such a funny guy. Bresh with Bresh's diary. Oh, that was so good. I'll tell you a Duke story from 2006 though. He's so insane. He's such a funny guy. Geez, he makes me laugh. And inadvertent. In fact, I'll go back before 2006. In 2003 or 2002, Leeds played. They were playing even before it was called the UEFA
Cup.
It was called the European Cup, whatever the UEFA Cup, and they were playing Valencia at home, and I was in England promoting either a film or a book or something that I was doing, and I contacted him, and he said, "Oh mate, come and watch the game. My cousin Mario's going, and My fiancée Ivana's going to be there. Dad's going to be there. You can sit with them." And so I went there and I sat there and there was people all around. It was all these famous people, Leeds legends all around me. And then his cousin said, "Oh, Dukes wants you to go to the rooms after the game. He wants you to introduce you to the side." And I'm going, "No, that's too much." He goes, "No, he wants you to go." So I've gone underneath and Dukes, he goes, "Hey, everybody, this is the funniest guy in Australia." Right? He goes, and I'm sitting there going, "What the hell?" He's going, "He's not that funny in real life, but he's a really funny guy." Right? So that's the kind of guy. He just speaks out loud. In 2006, I went to the Australia versus Croatia game, and so we qualified to the for the first time ever to the round of 16, and I'm there in the. It's called the mixed zone. I went there with media accreditation, but because I wasn't with the broadcaster, I couldn't go into the area where they had to talk, where the people had to talk to you. It's called the mixed zone, where if they want to talk to you, as they walk past, they can talk to you. Anyway, and I'm hugging Bresh and all the guys that I knew and everything like that. And as I'm hugging Bresh, I get this big bear hug from behind, and it's Dukes. And so he gives me he goes, "What are you doing here, mate? What are you doing here?" And I'm going, "Oh, I've come to see you guys." He goes, "Oh, mate, yeah, good to see you." Well, and I'm going, "Mate, forget about me. You've just captained the side, the first Australian side to get into the round of 16. It's unbelievable. Everyone in Australia is crying. My sister's crying. We love you. All this kind of stuff." He goes, "Hey, mate, do you have any Late Show tapes on you?" A videotape of a show we did called The Late Show. And I'm looking at it, and it didn't even. I was so emotional and crying that it didn't even register. So I said, "Dukes, you got to understand, we love what's going. What a day! What an amazing day!" And he's cutting me off. He's going, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you have any Late Show tapes on you?" And I'm going, "Dukes, I don't carry my stuff around. I don't have this stuff." He goes, "Can you get some? Because we're going crazy in camp. I mean, Hiddink won't let us do anything. We need some stuff. Can you get something? I go, "Well, I've got a friend in London who might have some." He goes, "Yeah, do that. Can you get?" And meanwhile, the doors kept on opening up because they were waiting for him to do a press conference, right? And he's talking to me about these tapes. Anyway, so I'm going, "Yeah, mate, you've got to go and do a press conference." He goes, "Yeah, all right." And he walks off, and as the sliding doors open and all the lights switched on, he was like, there was just a silhouette of him walking into this massive thing. And then he turns around, he comes back to me, he goes, "That sketch that you did, you and your uncle, that's fucking hilarious." And then he turned around and went and did the press conference.
Just a random bloke.
He's just a random guy.
He seems like a good bloke to have a beer with, huh?
Oh, good guy. But again, he's got great ideas with football, and he's quiet about it all. But again, as we were talking about before, he said he confided with me that he just said that with the removing of ethnicities from the A League here, it's obviously been a step forward because you can't keep sticking with that that past of Italians only barrack for this club and Greeks only barrack for that club, blah, blah, blah. I can understand that. But he said it's got rid of networks. It's got rid of networks and it's opened up, shonky academies and false hopes and all sorts of stuff where he said in the old days, in the NSL days when he played and when he was young, there were people, people actually did the work and people rang other people and said, "I've got a boy here."
Exactly.
I got a boy. Now, look, that probably still does happen. I'm sure it does.
Definitely.
But that stuff was rock
There's
solid.
a lot of shonky agents that feed on
mate.
that stuff too and promise the world.
Yeah.
But I think also what it's done as well is football clubs back in those days, and I'm sure you would understand that, was more of a community too. I think more than just a football club.
Yeah.
It was a
place to be.
identity.
Yeah.
Even if the people, like, you'd get probably the mothers, the uncles, the aunties, the sisters, that would actually be at the club, not at the game zone, but it's a community. Whereas I think now a lot of that is lost. And that's the thing we're talking about. It's hard to identify yourself with the club.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the big reasons why the A-League hasn't hit the heights.
I know. And it's funny because the A-League sort of has these little peaks and stuff, doesn't it? Whenever Australia does well. I mean, we had that great peak after the 2006 World Cup. It was happy days. It was happy days for the A-League. But it's sort of, unless you have that rock solid back foundation, it collapses very quickly.
Definitely.
And it's it's just going to go up and down and up and down, and it worries me because I love football, and I've been approached, do you want to be part of this club, or and I'm going, especially in the A-League, and you go, you know what? I love football so much that the last thing I'd want to do is actually, have a stake in it. You know what I mean? I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I'm a fan, and you don't want to see that.
Advantageous as well, because
Being
I
a
feel
fan, you got the club at heart.
I think so. Like, if you were to be involved, I think I think that's a point of difference, because there's a lot of people involved who aren't fans,
Trying to make money.
just see it as dollar signs,
Yeah.
and that's all they care about. In the end, it's their demise, because it doesn't work like that.
No, we get people saying, can I invest in your next film? And you go, well, really? I mean, no, not really, because we don't ask for people to do that. We try and make money on whatever we make, and then we reinvest it into our future things. But I can't guarantee you anything. It's like, you either got to like making a film and want to be part of the whole race. It's like a racehorse, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to, you know what I mean? It's an adventure. I don't know whether it's going to work or not.
Exactly.
But for people to, I'm presuming there's a lot of people in clubs that are going, well, I invested this much. Where's the results?
Exactly.
And you look in Europe, a lot of the best owners, like you look at, for example, Florentino Perez, Berlusconi, all these type of owners, they invested a lot of money, but they were like
Totally
tied to the club.
Absolutely.
They still, and that's, you look at the success they had.
Yeah.
Whereas you see some of these, like, billionaires, they invest in a club, no idea about football, hire some guy as the head of football, and then bang, all of a sudden they're in debt, $1 billion, because they don't know what they're doing. So it's not that easy.
It's sad, because I actually saw an interview with Dukes maybe 2 years ago.
Is that the ESPN, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he brought up all these amazing points on why. I don't know if you saw it.
No, I didn't
It
see
was
it.
about development in Australia.
No, I didn't see
football
it.
development. And it was like poetry for me. Like,
Good on
listening. But in the end, it's 2 years on. I think it was longer than 2 years.
Yeah, I remember when it was when the Euros were on.
Yeah, and
it came out.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
And, they spoke about the golden generation coming back to help and this and the other, and it never happened. And that's gives me no faith.
No,
You know what I mean?
and I think a lot of it is like, I think we've got to understand what does the golden generation mean? To me, I mean, I've thought about it a lot over the years, because you're going, what is it? Is all these freaks playing? It's not. It was everybody who played regular football in Europe.
In Europe,
Exactly.
right.
It was pretty simple.
It wasn't a rocket science.
it
was it?
you know what I mean? That's all it was.
Exactly right.
They might, one's playing at Blackburn, the other's playing, whatever. As long as you're just playing regular football at a reasonably high level, and you've got that match hardness, and
Exactly.
that's all it is.
Yep.
So we I don't know. I don't know what's happening up at that level. I don't know when Ange left. I don't know exactly what was going on there. It sounded like his ambitions were almost too lofty for Football Australia. Now, I seem to remember him saying, "I see us winning a World Cup, within 3 or 4 World Cups or something," and like everyone's head spun, going, "But you can't say that." And you go, "Well, why not? Why not?"
Yeah.
But I definitely think his ambition and what he wanted didn't align with theirs.
Yeah.
But then it's like what you're saying with Viduka. There's no better person that's been through it to like listen and be a mentor for these people.
They don't want to.
Like I just don't understand. And it's like, instead of hiring people that, haven't really got the background in football or had the journey, you got this guy that's probably the best player ever, that's played at the highest level, and he's saying these things, but then nothing gets done.
I think what happens is, and I've seen this a lot, in the world of television and in the world of radio, and that is that people in power, they're motivated more by the fear of failure than they are by that desire to sort of be an amazing success. Now, everyone wants that. They'll say they want that, but they're more scared than. So they'd rather not do anything too weird, because then you go, well, I've got less chance of actually being sacked.
Then if it doesn't work, it's all on you. Yeah, no, it makes
which is
sense.
a pity, because all great things come from once upon a time people thought that all swans were white until they got to West Australia and you go, no, there's a black swan. You know what I mean? So you've got to be the first person to say, no, this is what I reckon. I reckon we should do it this way. But it's hard to find people that back you up there, because if you go down, then go down. They go down with them.
Here's a question for you: 2006 World Cup quarterfinal. Oh, sorry, round 16. Italy is versing Australia.
Yeah.
Who are you going for?
Oh, mate, I'll show you the pictures. I was in my Australian gear.
You were?
I had the Australian shirt on.
Was there?
No, nothing. Because I'd gone to the World Cups following Italy so much, and I felt like Italy will always have its chance, okay? Italy will always have its chance. Italy is also the kind of club that, the team that kind of annoys me, that you go, with all that talent, guys, come on, get over all that, the personal stuff that's going in there and going on in there, and stop sooking, stop doing, I love the 1984 the 1982 side is my favourite, because the backs against the walls, they had just toughed it out. And you're going, that's toughing it out. That's a great side. And sometimes you look at sides and you go, you know what? You're taking this for granted. You know that the World Cup, they can't take it for granted anymore, unfortunately. But so then I really wanted Australia to win, because Australia really had to work hard there. They got in there. Actually, Italy got in there ugly as well. They got in ugly. They got in ugly. Clearly, after we lost that game, my allegiance has swung completely. But I really wanted Australia to win that game.
Yeah.
In fact, that game was. I'd waited my whole life for that game. I can't say that. I mean, I basically said, I've seen everything now. I've gone to see Italy versus Australia at a World Cup in a final stage. That's to me, it just didn't get any better than that. And I thought it was the right result. I mean, I don't think Australia played well. I mean, we could have stolen it, but we didn't quite play well enough to deserve to win that game. I don't think. And I think that they were probably World Cup maybe World Cup naive to once you get a player sent off, you know that there's a good chance the ref is going to make up for that, especially when it was touch and go, the send off as well, but how dramatic! I mean, of all circumstances, what do you guys reckon? Do you reckon it was a penalty?
Oh well,
look.
We got a player's perspective on this, to be honest.
We talk about this, because we've spoken about it a few times across many years, we cop some abuse.
Oh, okay. So
on both. Look, for me, it's a penalty. Yeah, personally, because if I put myself in Grosso's boots, I'm going down every single time. Exactly. And I also have the opinion, someone like Lucas Neal, who was playing at the top level, captaining his side.
West Ham, I think, at the time.
West Ham? Yeah.
I think.
Blackburn or West
Ham?
One of them. Maybe West. I think West Ham.
But regarded as a top centre back, should have known better.
You don't go down. As in, like, we're attacking players too. So for me, any incentive that the defender gives me to go down, I'm going down.
Absolutely.
If he stays up, then Grosso's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So you got to look at it. I'll look at it from both perspectives. And if it was given against us, like, for example, I would be like, well, why are you diving in? Well, you know what I mean? It's almost like you got to give it as the ref without VAR too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in the spirit of the moment.
What's your opinion on should Bresh have brought him down earlier?
Oh, it's a tough one.
Because there was some. Do you reckon he did try? Do you reckon he?
I reckon he did.
Because I can't look back at it.
I reckon he's Italian in him. Just let him go.
No way.
The gentleman in him. Let him go.
Well, I think he sort of tried.
Yeah. I remember there was a sort of.
It was on the edge, the box.
It was not quite the edge of the box. It was still
on the corner.
The amount of
But
times
I remember in the lead up to that game, because as I said, I had a media accreditation, and I struck up a good friendship with most of the guys from the Gazzetta dello Sport and all the other Italian media. And because I struck up a friendship with them, and some of them I still write to, they were asking me for intel, and so they were going, a lot of, just Harry Kuehl, what do you reckon? And I'm going, definitely playing.
Yeah.
So I kept giving them wrong information as much as I could, as much as I could.
That's so funny. What was your opinion on a penalty?
I reckon it was a penalty. I reckon in a World Cup. I'm sorry. Yes. Luckily, I'm not on social, so I'm good. I'm good. What I mean is, at the time, you know what? What if they look back at it on VAR? What would happen
That's
now?
the thing. So it's totally different.
I don't know what VAR would do. I don't know what VAR would say. Is it would a different referee give a different decision?
And that's the thing, because you got to look at it from the perspective the ref was in real time.
Yeah.
So like it's gone, it's happened, boom.
Yeah.
It's not like now we look at it, they look at it for 15 minutes.
But I reckon it'd be just as hard.
Because how do you overturn the ref's decision?
Yeah.
It's got to be like clear and obvious. It's like, is it clear and obvious?
I
Oh,
don't
no. And then the angles that you look at it, it's different.
I just thought that Fabio Grosso had the right to keep travelling in the direction that he was travelling in.
Without going down. Is that what you said?
Yeah, as in he,
I think he could have stayed up if he wanted to.
He could have stayed up.
But I haven't off the top of my head, but I don't know what was there.
Yeah.
Like if there was a player ready.
Yeah.
I don't know whether there was.
Because
I don't think there was
as well. There wouldn't have been as many players forward.
I don't know.
And in the post match, again in the mixed zone, I was listening to Totti's. I was listening to Totti's interview with I don't know who he was talking to, and he was thinking of doing
but I heard that.
Yeah.
He said it in his documentary.
Yeah.
Did he say it in his documentary? Because I heard him actually say it.
And everyone's like, come on, not now.
Yeah.
And then he just decided to smash it. Yeah.
And I remember, so it was it was the coach Lippi who was there.
Yeah.
So, and I remember Lippi being asked, so what were you thinking at the what were your thoughts on the penalty? He goes, my thoughts were about who I was going to play, who I was going to play in extra time, and he said I wasn't even thinking about it. My mind was already in extra time. So to me, it was an interesting ploy by Hiddink, because Hiddink obviously just said, let's roll the dice, let's try and hang in there and just get it to extra time or penalties even. But because I thought that Hiddink was an interesting coach in that World Cup. I think he was a great gambler in that World Cup, wasn't he? He just gambled his way through
definitely.
He did, definitely. It looked like a party from here, but what was it like actually being in Germany in that World Cup? Because
it was a party.
I feel like the vibe was very different. Maybe Brazil was sort of...
Brazil would have been a party too.
But I don't know. For me, Germany, obviously, because Italy won it as well. But there's
special,
yeah. But there was also, I don't know, it just had an amazing vibe around it.
It had a vibe. I think that when you're in, especially World Cups in Europe, I really noticed it in France and in Germany, because the Dutch are there, because the Scottish
easier
were,
to travel to.
The Scottish were there in '98. When you're with the Scottish, it's fun. They basically set up camp, and you can't avoid it. Yeah. So it is a bit of a party, and the Australians, clearly the Australians were having a great time.
Of course,
we're having a great time. In fact, I was there for the because I went there at really late notice. I was staying with the the AFL Footy Show.
Were they doing a show?
They were doing shows from there.
Really?
So, and they said, "Why don't you come and stay? Why don't you stay at the hotel with us?" So I was spending time with them, and it was great fun. Yeah. They had big concerts with, Colin Hay from Men at Work and Simple Mind. Your mum will tell you about this, Alessandro. But it was party. It was party time there.
It definitely looked like it from
whereas Korea and Japan, not quite.
Did you go to that?
It was such a weird. I did go to that because, again, it was my dream to take my dad to a World Cup, and it was the first year of what they call team-specific tickets, so you could follow all of Italy's games. Yeah. So I said to my dad, let's just get all of Italy's games, and however far they go, and then what happens is you then get to see the teams. You get to see the games that they would have played in had they not made it. Right. So we basically got there after that, the day they got knocked out by South Korea. So literally we went, which was terrible, obviously. So we got to see every game that Italy would have played in had it not been for that awful and corrupt decision that we know now. we know now that the guy
I
wasn't.
think he got condemned, the ref, didn't he?
Yeah.
He actually got charged.
But for drugs
for
or
other
something
stuff,
else.
for other stuff. For I think he was a corrupt mayor or something.
I think he tried to traffic cocaine as
There
well.
That was-
something.
There's
Like,
some,
looking at it now and you see it,
I watched it back not long
it's
ago.
actually,
Oh,
it makes me
unbelievable.
sick looking at that.
it's truly unbelievable.
Like, you got one that, all right, like, you got the decision, like the Lampard one in South Africa when it crossed the line.
Yeah.
Okay, one incident. When we're talking like 5 or 6
I know, it
onside
was out of
goals,
control.
I was like,
You should talk to Ed Cavalier about corruption in sport. He'll.
Yeah?
Oh yeah, he's got a few theories there.
Yeah,
He's got a good thing. But the good thing about going to the World Cup with my dad was just the adventures that we'd had. There was one time at we were in Korea, and in the World Cup they usually have one place in the country that is not a big place. It's just to highlight the agricultural center or something like that. And so we went to a tiny place in Korea for where Italy would have been playing one of their matches. As I'm flying in, I've got my Lonely Planet guide. Back in the days where people used to actually read a book before they went to a country. And I'm going, I wonder where we're staying, because we had our tickets had vouchers guaranteeing our stay and had like code numbers, but didn't have an address. So I'm going, how many hotels does this place have? Because it looks pretty small. And I read it's only got 3 hotels. I'm going, there's going to be 50,000 people at the game, and there's 3 hotels. And it's a small town. So I arrived, went straight up to the information desk, the World Cup information desk. And I go, hey, look, I've got accommodation here. It says here, but what's the hotel? And they go, no, you got to go to the taxi driver, and he knows the code, and he'll take you there. So I went up to a taxi driver and I said, no, we're going here. And he goes, you go there? And I'm going, yeah, we're going there. He goes, you go there? And I'm going, yeah, we're going there. He's going, oh, yeah, okay. So we're driving. We drive from the airport. We drive into the town. We drive through the town. We drive out of the town. And all of a sudden, we're in this area. It's like a complete red light district. And there's this like motel called the hotel. It's called Young Sin, and I thought it was a Korean name, but no, it's actually Young Sin. It's like you rent it by the hour, and so he drops us off, and you walk in there, and there's literally an old lady in a titanium cage, right, and a whole lot of X-rated like DVDs on the wall, and she's looking at us, and I'm going, we've got a room here tonight, and she's going, I don't understand, and then basically a working girl walks down the stairs and she goes, I speak English, can I help you guys? And I'm going, are we in the wrong place? Should we be staying here? And she goes, yeah, no, you're staying in the, she said, you're staying on the pirate floor. And I'm and she said, do you want towels? And I'm going, well, we're probably going to need towels. And they gave us these tiny little towels, right? So we've gone up there, and there's, in this corridor, there's portholes, and it looked like a pirate ship, right? And we walk into the room, and it's a heart-shaped bed with mirrors everywhere. So my dad and I had to top and tail in a heart-shaped bed. I've got pictures of all this stuff, right? And I'm going, this is crazy. This is insane. And my dad's going, how good is this? You can actually see the soccer the right way around when you're lying down, because there's one mirror looking into that mirror into the TV. And when we woke up the following morning, we were relieved to find out that there was a whole lot of other soccer people there. They'd basically opened up every piece of accommodation.
Just wasn't much around,
yeah. But it was crazy to do that. Yeah,
that's crazy. When we did a bit of research on you, we also found out that you became the unofficial official translator of Juve.
I think the word unofficial is probably.
How did that even come
my
about?
God, geez, how did you find out? Well, I do tell the story every now and again, especially when whenever I do anything with Mick Malloy and it's soccer, he always makes me tell the story. But I was at university, it was the early 80s, and 84 maybe, and the great Juventus side came out here, obviously well before your time, but it was a legendary side. Most of the 82 World Cup side was from that team. And they all came. It wasn't one of those ones where, they leave people behind. They came. They all came. Rossi came, Boniek, Scirea, Zoff had retired but was playing. So Stefano Tacconi was the goalkeeper at the time. He was a great goalkeeper. But that was just some of them. But Cabrini, Tardelli, they were all there. I was going to my Zia Rosa and Zia Maria's place, which is in Park Street in Parkville, because I used to go from university to their place maybe once every couple of weeks. They used to make pizzas for me at home. Those big fat ones, the big fat ones. And I used to take them back to uni. I was a bit of a hero at uni. We'd share around the pizzas and everything. And I remember my dad saying the Juve's doing a press conference at the Park Royal Motel, which is opposite Princess Park, Optus Oval. Mm-hmm. And as I was going there, I saw all the antennas and everything up. And I said, oh, yeah. So I walked in. Trapattoni was coach, and the press conference was about to start. And on the front desk there was Trapattoni, Rossi, Boniek, and Zoffo Tardelli. And I remember there was a media person went up to Trapattoni and said, well, who's your translator? He goes, no translator for me. I speak English very good. And I'm sitting there going, geez, here's trouble. So the first question goes, so Mr. Trapattoni, how do you think it's going to go? You reckon it's going to go well? What are your chances? And he's just looking and going, what the hell? So I said, I said, I just put my hand up and I just said, because no one was translating. It was just dead air. It was just dead air. And I said, he asked, blah, 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 blah. And next question, I do the same thing. Trapattoni says, come and sit down here. Don't do it from the floor. So I sat next to him, and there's footage. A friend of mine from the ABC there's actual footage that was shown on the news that night. You see me up there with the guys. Anyway, so I spent the rest of the tour around Australia being their translator. And when you say unofficial translator, it meant that there were other jobs that were involved in it as well. For instance, I was in charge of holding all the married men's wedding rings every night. So I had to put a little label on them and make sure that it went back to the right guy, because then they'd be so offended if they got the wrong wedding ring back. So they were here partying. And I also used to take, this is clearly before mobile phone calls, I used to take the phone calls, and the phone calls were, sorry, senora, no, your husband's in a team meeting at the moment. And which technically was sometimes correct. But I witnessed some things that you got no idea. Well, I'm just wondering, is the statute of limitations, you know what? Considering now that both are no longer with us, I did witness Scirea getting very physical with Paolo Rossi one night in the corridors, like as in it was on.
Really?
Because I think Gaetano Scirea was a very quite a serious kind of guy. Paolo Rossi was a bit of a player, and I think he brought a couple of girls back to the room, and he just had enough of it, and I had to get out and actually stop that. But the rest of it was all translating for guys at nightclub. Even this, it was quite embarrassing, especially the single guys go, can you go up to that girl and say this? And I'm going, I cannot say that. And they're going, you're my translator. And I'm going, but I can't, I cannot do that. It's just, and so there was a lot of that going on. But geez, it was a good time. And we took the guys to a footy match. I remember taking Paolo Rossi and they just said, these guys are mad. Also, you got to think, it was the early 80s. So you can imagine what footy was like. People were punching each other, they were boxing on, you know what I mean? And there was a crazy guy called, in fact, of all people, there was a crazy guy called Mark Jacko Jackson.
I think I've seen clips of him.
Oh, yeah, no, he played that day, and the Italians saw him, and they just said, oh, my God. But it was so weird that there were training sessions at Duke's Road in Faulkner. The Juve side was actually, you're walking up Duke's Road with basically, the cream World Cup champions, and people are patting, just tapping them on the shoulder and walking up to them, going, can you take a picture? And they were crazy days, but great. There was a great side.
It would have been crazy. Now it's not even good enough for NPL at Duke's Road. That's how entitled people are these days.
Does anyone play there? Who plays there now?
Yeah.
I think Faulkner plays there, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think now. I don't know.
Is it Juve? Some plays there.
How many Juves are there at the moment?
I don't know which is who is who anymore, but anyway.
Yeah, because I was at the original, the Sumner Park. I was at the Sumner Park. That's where. Yeah, okay, yeah.
So you better come
Great
down.
days. Yeah. I'm sure. I don't know whether I've ever asked you before, but can you still smell the fennel from Merry Creek?
You know what? I haven't noticed yet, but when you told me on the phone, I'm sort of, because we actually haven't been back to Sumner since, because we're not allowed to train on it until the season starts.
Is that right? Okay.
But I will keep that in mind.
It's a beautiful smell from down the creek. Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah.
But now they've got, you won't recognise the place.
Is that right? What have they got there now? The stands and things?
Bar.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah, well, they reckon it's like the best bar in a soccer club in Victoria.
Yeah.
Because they're sponsored by a massive brewery.
Yeah.
Full on like cafe, coffee machine, pasta nights, all the rest of it. So
right. Well, look, those days back in those days, there were some good players that came through there. Have you guys ever heard of Eddie Končević? No. Eddie was a great Croatian player. Who
Alan, I think, mentioned him.
He would have played with Alan. I think he coached Carlton in the NSL, where Bresh and Vinny and Simon were. So he came up through there. In fact, quite a lot of Croatians. I don't know why back then. Maybe it was so early on that you had better chances playing with Juve than you did staying with the Knights, which were the Preston Knights, maybe back. I don't know whether they were the Melbourne Knights back then. I'm not sure, but there were Croatians that came through there, and there were some great players that came through. There was a wonderful Italian player called Fabian Cantalupo who was really good.
Funny enough, he's one of our best friends' father-in-law.
Is that right?
Yes.
In fact, I bumped into him not that long ago down at Lawn. Yeah. And so he may have been slightly younger than me, but I think he played for Australia. I think he may have actually played a couple of games.
I don't know if it was for the
maybe for
team,
the under,
but I think it was the under 20.
I think, I remember Marcus telling us.
Right, okay, yeah.
There you go.
But some great players came through and some great coaches. And, back in those days, some great Italian players who played at a really high level in Italy or in Scotland and stuff, they played for Juventus. They would, you got to remember, George Best played in Australia.
Yeah.
I know he came to party, but he played in the NSL. He played for, maybe was the NSL, maybe not even the NSL. He played for Muralbach.
What?
Yeah, and Doncaster Road. I know, it's crazy.
I actually didn't know that.
Crazy stuff.
I didn't know that,
Someone's written a book about it called Be My Guest. I've got,
Wow.
So George Best did actually come here, yeah.
So, and you were obviously, were you a fan as well?
Of
Juve?
absolutely. Yeah.
At Sumner Park.
Absolutely.
What was that like? Because we always hear about the NSL days and whatever it was before that.
Yeah.
And, how...
Well, as we were saying before, the community spirit was unbelievable. You knew the players. Everyone knew the players. I mean, I know I was more connected with the club, but still, we used to go to, the guy, if the guys were playing a 3 p.m. game at Olympic Park, at midday you'd be at Pellegrini's with half the team, and they're having is Dino De Marchi still involved at Juve? I know he was. He used to play in the 70s, but basically I used to remember the big plates of pasta at about 12:30. They're carving up or whatever they're doing. You go, really? You shouldn't be eating ravioli before a game. I'm not sure this is right. But that was part of it. I remember as a really little kid, this is in 1970 because I'm a big AFL fan, and Collingwood was playing in a grand final against Carlton at the MCG. Massive game. There were I think 120,000 people went to that game. And Juve was playing at Olympic Park, and literally people had transistors in the game at the soccer game to find out what was going on in the footy game. And the players were literally, walking up and going, "What's the score?" It was that vibe. Even though there were, 15,000 people watching a state league game, there was still that level of, personability. It still had that. So they were great days. They were very passionate days, and I don't know whether you guys have spoken to anybody who's involved in South Melbourne. They used to sack coaches every 3 or 4 weeks. If they didn't deliver, they were full on. They used to get rid of them, and but there were some wonderful players. I got to tell you, the most exciting players were the ones that just wanted to come to a better climate and make maybe a little bit more money from where they were playing in like Dundee or Kilmarnock or something. The Scottish players were great.
Yeah.
They were really good. They were tough. They were skillful. They were fun. And they were really, really, really good to watch. But I'm talking about state league game. This is before NSL.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm that old that when I went at NSL, I used to go to the games, but I wasn't passionate about it because it wasn't my wheelhouse. So I grew up in the era before that. So I would go to games, but I wasn't attached to any clubs. Same with A-League. I'm not attached to any club. I love to see Melbourne clubs do well, but
really,
I don't have that attachment.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap it up, what's next for Santo? What's in the works? If any exclusives?
I'm taking it one game at a time.
Yeah.
I'm still working with the same guys after 40 years plus. So last year was our busiest year ever. We've never done more productions in our life. So we mightn't be in front of the camera as much as we have been in the past because, let's say we've gone past our prime in terms of presentability. But our brains are still in it. Our enthusiasm is still in it. Our love is still in it. So we'll keep doing comedy shows till they put us in a wooden box. And in terms of football, I'll keep pushing the game again till they put me in a box. And whether and it doesn't matter what the format is, whether it's on AFL show like the front bar and stuff. I'll always bring my soccer colours to that. Santo Cilauro never dies, as in it's one of those things where we're always there. We're always texting each other. If we're not even doing the show, we're texting each other jokes. So I'm sure we'll bring it back. Everyone's really busy. Sam's doing a lot of shows. Ed's a very busy man. He does Breakfast Radio in Sydney. We're producing a lot of shows. So we don't know. We try not to think too much in advance. We got another season of Have You Been Paying Attention this year, another season of The Cheap Seats, another season of Thank God You're Here, and then we'll be writing. We're always writing for the next stuff.
Well, it's been an absolute honour to have you in here.
Thank you very much.
Honestly,
I love talking football, and you guys are fantastic. It's great talking to you.
Thank you.
Give my regards to your mum.
I will, yes.
Tell her, ask her if she ever saw the ant sketch
Yes, I will.
and whether she was offended by it, whether she was there on the fateful night.
Maybe that's the table you fell on. And thank you for all the work you do as well for football in this country.
There's no need. I don't expect thanks because it's, you know what I mean. It's a love. It's a love.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
it's like saying thanks to your parents when you go, well, that's what you do.
Yeah.
So I don't. In many ways, I don't feel like I do enough.
Yeah.
But I don't. You know what? I also don't want to wear my football suit like a hair suit. Like I don't want it to be a burden on me.
No,
you know what I mean? You want to celebrate it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's how I treat my relationship with both football and also my nationality. I love being Italian. I bring a lot of my Italian ethnicity into my humour, but I'm not a standard bearer for Italian society. You know what I mean? I don't want to be seen as, you're the Italian guy that does comedy.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, boys. All the best to you guys.
Thank you very much.
If you haven't already, make sure you are following us on Instagram, TikTok, subscribe to YouTube, follow on Spotify.
And basically that's it.
I think that's it. Yeah. I'd say follow Santo on Instagram, but he doesn't even need Instagram.
Yes. Unless you, if you think it wasn't a penalty, then don't do any of that.
Yeah, exactly. Just abuse us instead. All right, guys, thank you very much, and we'll see you next episode. Ciao.